Sasha. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. You're not eating anymore. Thank you. Because
You're welcome.
that crunching was starting to drive me nuts. So you like those other titles I was just telling you? The opening one is I Killed My Father.
Skip, haven't done that.
Yes, I'm just going to set the bar really high for you because I'm expecting some really great stories.
Okay.
And so, first though, you're an attorney. You specialize in removing tenants, cash for keys. And which I love the fact that you're not saying I do this and I do this and I do this. I'm sure there's a ton of things you do that you're capable of doing, but saying that focused on it that means so someone if that comes up, it's so easy to refer you and stuff. But tell us what got you into that and what makes you tick when it comes to your business.
So I started doing cash for keys about 5 years ago when COVID started. And it was
Mm-hmm.
mainly, I knew about it, but I had never really done it. It was more real estate agents sort of did it on the fly or management did it. But it came to the point where tenants weren't
Mm-hmm.
paying rent and they weren't doing rent relief. So landlords
Mm-hmm.
were racking up these huge debts, 30, 40, $50,000. And they're like, look, we'll just pay like we'll waive it and we'll give them like 5, 10 grand to just move out so we can stop hemorrhaging our cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing those deals and a lot of tenants would like agree. Then from there, landlords came to me and they go, well, the tenant's paying, but they're below market. Or I need to sell my house, but I can't evict because of these moratoriums, which then sort of
Mm-hmm.
became permanently codified. So now, most jurisdictions, if you have a house that you're renting, unless you have a reason to get them out, you can't just ask them to move so you can sell your house. So it all just
Mm-hmm.
became these things that were permanently adopted from COVID that it just became an ongoing necessity to do just cash for keys in order for landlords to either sell or be able to remodel and get market rent.
Very good, very good. Do you also deal with like, for instance, I have a rental,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the tenants, their dog attacked a small dog, and I said, "I'm so sorry, but we're going to have you find another place." They said, "Well, no one really got hurt." I said, "Yeah, but now we're put on notice. So if your dog does that again and hurts another dog or hurts someone, then we're going to be screwed. I mean, we're going to be at a huge liability." So would you be able to handle something like that?
No, I typically what I do is try to get tenants to move. So if they're like, I'm not moving, um,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not really go. If they're like, I'm willing to move and you are like, okay, we'll have a conversation about that, or I can step in and have that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, I do that. But it's more you would probably have a good feel for the tenant at that point. Like, would they be willing to move out? Like, hey, we'll let you break your lease, we'll
Mm-hmm.
pay you a few bucks because you're trying to mitigate your exposure. But like you maybe need to move into another
Mm-hmm.
building that possibly has no dogs, or maybe you rent a house so your dog goes in the
Mm-hmm.
yard and has no fighting with no other dogs. So it sort of depends on
Mm-hmm.
how this conversation rapport is with this tenant. But yes, the landlord
Mm-hmm.
tenant or tenant on tenant dispute, I try to avoid that. I don't do those cases, and
Okay.
they're incredibly
Well,
annoying and
in this
common.
case, you're going to be very proud of me.
Hmm.
You're going to be very proud of me because I called him up and I said, "Look, man to man, husband to husband, you know, I I don't want anything bad for you. I know you don't want anything bad for me, but there is a lot of exposure. I've spoken with a lot of people. Happy to let you out of your lease early. It's going to cost us several $1,000s to do this. I'm not going to ask for anything from you, and I'll give you your deposit back as long as it's in considerably the same condition as it was before." And he at first said no because they were frustrated and upset, which I got, because it's a tough situation for everybody. But ultimately, they called back and said, we used to honor that. And I said, 100%, let's do it. So that's what I did. But I was just wondering, let's say I couldn't do it, then I could step in, I could call you and then give you kind of a snapshot of how things are. And then maybe you can go in there, roll up your sleeves and go, let's go. Let's go. It's go time, baby.
Yes. I mean, really, that's sort of the approach people used to take a lot, which is just to go to the tenant and be like, look, this is a problem, and we're trying to address it and be solutions oriented. That would be the
Mm-hmm.
ideal thing to do in most scenarios. And in fact, there's plenty of deals that get done or solutions that are reached just talking to the tenant, going, look, this is what's going on, this is the situation. It's
Mm-hmm.
not great for everybody, but let's try to resolve it. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
kind of on the tenant, right? Because it was like their dog that was the attacker.
Mm-hmm.
It also
Right.
mitigates
Right.
their risk because if the dog had attacked another dog or another person again, that would have pretty much been also on him. So,
Yes. Yes. So, okay, good. That's the way we handle it, and I like the way you're talking because if you need to roll up your sleeves, you will. But generally speaking, you like to work things out and understand the law, so that makes you extremely valuable.
okay. I said in real estate, everything is a numbers based game. And a lot of the times,
Mm-hmm.
what helps is when the numbers are also a numbers based game for the tenant. So, in that case, with the dog bite scenario, it was also a numbers game for them because maybe they could find cheaper housing somewhere else, anyways, so they can get out of the lease. Or the fact that he already has one instance that he kind of got out, he's able to mitigate his own
Mm-hmm.
risk. So, that's kind of a lot of things. It's just numbers. Like, I think every deal comes down to the numbers.
I hear you. This got very emotional for them. So I ended up. We talked about the numbers, of course, but then I talked about, do you really want to do this to us? It puts us in a terrible position. You're a really nice guy. We've always gotten along. I mean, is this really what you want to do? And because I mean, just person to person, it's a terrible position to put us in. And we feel for you, but I'm asking you just to be a stand-up guy. And fortunately, he was. He handled it really well. He and his wife. All right, so tell us one of your real estate health stories.
One of my I mean, they're all real estate health stories. No, I mean, I deal with a lot of, it gets very emotional. Like, I've had clients where, like, I had one that I did, I think earlier this year, and the tenants had, like, lived in this apartment for well over a decade. They got married in the backyard. And it got to the point where my client, they were older. The tenants were like, in their 40s. My clients were like in their 60s. And they're like, look, we got to sell the property, but we got to have the unit vacant. I think it was like a duplex or triplex. So we want to like, buy these tenants out. So I approached the tenants, offer them good amount of money, like, almost twice the high end of relocation. I had a call with them, and the call got very emotional. I mean, it was a husband and wife, and the husband broke down crying on this call and was like, "You're ruining my life. You're ruining our lives. Like, this is like, how could you do this?" And I was like, "I'm offering you a substantial amount of money, and it's voluntary. You don't have to take it. You have the rights as a tenant to stay in this unit, but no one's trying to ruin your life." And I had to really console both of them. Like, look, I'll do what I can. There's probably some room here. Maybe I can get you a few more bucks. But this is not about ruining your life. And in fact, the owner never raised your rent for 11 years when the owner could have.
Mm,
You got married in the backyard. My client remodeled your unit at your request and never charged you for it. Never tried to pass through any of the costs to you. And at this time, you're being offered a substantial amount of money. So I don't think it's fair to say that we're trying to ruin your life here. You are free to say no to this. And even if you sign, you have 30 days to change your mind. To which they turned around and
mm-hmm.
got a few more bucks, and a deal was done. So a lot of it is
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to tell a tenant that their feelings are invalid, and I don't tell them that. I might think that their feelings, personally, I think maybe are blown out of proportion, but I'm not here to invalidate
Right.
tenant feelings. And they come from some sort of grain of truth or some sort of reality for them, or it's a misplaced of characterization. Like, ruining my life is probably not what he's trying to say. I think it was the shock of being asked to move is something that, it's a life-changing decision. So that's all that really buyouts are for the tenant. It's a huge life-changing decision of being offered a voluntary negotiable lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So for my clients, it also gets very emotional because they feel like, well, the tenant's being punitive or the tenant's trying to harass me. So it's always when you're doing like kind of these negotiations, and why a lot of times landlords don't want to do them is because I can sit there and listen to a tenant for an hour and a half go on with their life story and how much they hate their landlord and all of the things that the landlord did. and be able to compartmentalize that. If you were to go have that conversation one on one with your tenant, if you're the landlord and the tenant's going off on you, you can't keep your composure, right? And so a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
having to deal with tenants' emotions is one of the hardest parts. I mean, I have tenants who scream at me. I had one tenant who I was like trying, I go, look, no one wants to evict you. You're being offered like five figures here. You're being, you wanted this number and that's what offered. That's what was accepted. But you don't get to stay here rent free
Mm-hmm.
forever. You're eating through that money. It's got to come out one way or the other. And it was like, no, you have to just
Mm-hmm.
evict me. And then would call like a few days later and would say, okay, well, let's do a deal. I go, okay, well, this is the deal. No. And would just scream at me to the point like she screamed so much. And I was like trying, I go, look, you got to listen. That I took off the afternoon. I was like, I can't do anything. I was like, this is like, I'm too tired to be dealing with anything else. So a lot of the like
Mm-hmm.
hell stories, I mean, I've had tenants that are just incredibly punitive or incredibly advantageous to the situation. And they're
Mm-hmm.
usually the tenants that have lived there the longest and are family friends or even family members. I do a lot of buyouts where
Mm-hmm.
family has lived there and they stopped paying rent years ago. And they don't have anywhere to go and they don't have money and they don't know what they're doing. And so I have to like broker these deals. I have to broker deals between siblings. So
Mm-hmm.
they're all kind of, it's somewhat of like a hellscape as a concept of like I got to pay a tenant to move out, like why can't I just tell them to go? So when you sort of already have that underlying and boiling, some tenants feel like borderline insulted if you offer them relocation. Like, what am I supposed to do with
Mm-hmm.
that? I'm like, well, the city came up with that number. What number do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an emotional roller coaster. And then sometimes they agree, and then sometimes they don't, and sometimes they want more, and then sometimes they're yelling, and then you have a deal. And they get their check, the landlord gets their keys, and it's like great. But the concept in and of itself is quite bonkers. And it's only in rent controlled areas.
Right. I think it's nuts to me. I mean, it's very sad that it's usually family or friends that are doing it. And what I found in my experience, and with I was telling you with the deal with Scott Greenberg, the amazing probate specialist. It's a little plug for Scott Greenberg. Was that it was these people had been living free forever and ever and ever, and it was still it was such a challenge, and it was so emotion. And instead of saying, "Hey, thank you for this beautiful time and all these years of free rent, this opportunity to be here," it becomes this big fight, and it's really sad sometimes. Do
Yes,
you have another
it's
story?
one of
Sure.
those I did a whole video about this, but I think it's kind of a core concept. That's not really a cash for keys issue, but doing favors with real estate. And it comes back to sort of bite one when they're trying to do a buyout, which is you move a family member or a friend in at really low rent. So out the gate, you're subsidizing them, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be temporary and it's never temporary. And when the day comes, you go, look, I got to sell my house. I got to sell, this unit. I got to offload the property. There's no, hey, thanks. Like you said, there's no like, wow, thank you. I wasn't paying rent and I banked all that money. Or, I know I was paying half of market rent. I've banked the market difference. I can go find an apartment, no problem. They're like, you're ruining my life by not
Mm-hmm.
charging me market rent. And now rents are really high. And it's like, well, no, rent was high when you moved in. It was high, but you got a break and you promised when you moved in. The whole point of the break was that you would save your money because this was temporary. And then you got very comfortable with the temporary cheap arrangement. And so a lot of landlords, they go, look, you can't do
Mm-hmm.
favors with real estate because there's tenant rights. And it doesn't matter if it's your friend or you think they're not a tenant. If they're living in a residential unit and paying you for it, they're a tenant. And so a lot of the times, obviously in
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, it's 2020. And most of these landlords are like, look, I'm selling the property. I just need them out. But that's also sort of why landlords are a little more jaded. Why landlords don't want to help people out or why a lot of these things are getting sold because landlords can't keep up. Or like even if they're not really a landlord, they're a property owner who stumbled into being a landlord. or they had a house and they moved and they just rented it, very lackadaisically. All of those things become really things that I have to overcome when I'm talking to the tenant and trying to level with them. Like, look, you had a really good deal for a very long time. And so this is, you're being
Mm-hmm.
offered money to move, and this is to help you, but you are getting a break for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So the landlord has
Mm-hmm.
gone above and beyond already for you while carrying the mortgage, while carrying the property tax, while carrying the insurance, while fixing all the stuff that you wanted. And usually that's like they never raised rent, which is the
Mm-hmm.
worst part about it, I think. The never raising rent.
I have a question.
Hmm.
So let's say someone is thinking, okay, this is going to be different. I'm going to actually do this with a friend, but we're so tight, and they would never ever do something like this to me or a family member. What would you recommend that they do to protect everybody? Is there a way to do that? Is there an addendum or something you can put together, like an understanding in writing?
Is this before they move in?
Yes.
Full lease agreement. Have it drafted by a real estate agent who knows about residential leasing. And a good way to ask if they
Mm-hmm.
know about it is if they know what AB 1482 is. If they don't know what that is, you need to find a different leasing agent. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or hire a property manager, if that's within the budget. But make sure that you have a lease agreement in place, and you can reach out to apartment associations. If you have a real estate friend, you can reach out to them. They might be able to connect you, pay the commission if you need to pay it, or some sort of fee for getting it
Mm-hmm.
drafted. But have somebody draft the lease agreement and give the disclosures, because there are a ton of disclosures, especially if you're like in LA City.
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple disclosures. Make sure that you register your property before you rent it out if it's supposed to be registered in that jurisdiction. And then have the lease be entirely in your favor as a landlord. And
Mm-hmm.
do not give them a huge discount off market rent and raise their rent every year. You don't have to raise it the
Mm-hmm.
max amount, but raise it every year.
Because if you don't, then you're stuck. It's not like you can go back and say, okay, well, I
You
haven't done it for the
can't,
last 5 years, so we're going to catch up at like 15,
nope.
20%.
Well, and if you're in a jurisdiction, like there's a lot of jurisdictions in LA that they have, if you raise rent a certain point, you have to pay the tenant relocation. Or
Mm-hmm.
they only allow a certain amount of money to be, they have a certain percentage that they are capped at, and it changes every year. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to rent it to you for $1,000 this year, but the next year we're going to go to, market rent, which is 3,000. It's like, that's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like in a duplex and like maybe you have one empty unit and you live in the other one. You're still rent controlled. So you have to really know what your property is and what you're dealing with and the rules subject to it. And
Mm-hmm.
most definitely do not lease an unpermitted structure. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
The garage conversion that you did or you bought that was converted and you never got it legalized, the ADU that you never
Mm-hmm.
got a certificate of occupancy on, the illegal extension in the back of your house that you sort of quasi made a unit and closed off the door to the living room, whatever it is, anything that's unpermitted, do not rent it.
That's great advice. But so tell me, let's say someone does that. What are going to be the repercussions of that? How is that going to bounce back at them?
It usually bounces back when you need them to leave. That's where it bounces back. When you go, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I have to, like times are tough. I'm moving out of state. My mom just passed away, and I need to sell this because I need to do something. My family needs to, whatever it is. You need to sell the property, and this person's in it at like super below market rent, and they find out that their unit's illegal, and that happens to me all the time. That happens to me all the time when I do buyouts on units that are like unpermitted, and then the tenant and an effort to get leverage or hires an attorney, and the attorney starts doing online research and they find that there's an illegal garage conversion, and then they're like, okay, well, we want $100,000 now. This is a habitability lawsuit. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't become a problem until you're telling a tenant to leave a situation that they really like. I really like where I
Mm-hmm.
live in, let's say Topanga Canyon, and I'm paying, a basket of blueberries every month and rent to you. And now you want me to go. And you're like, yeah, I gotta sell it. This is not an illegal unit issue, but one of the buyouts I did, I want to say it was during COVID. And as a guy rented it, and then he rented it with a friend. The friend moved out, the girlfriend moved in, they had a kid. And I presented this move out offer because my client needed to move to the East Coast to LA to live in this unit. And during COVID, you couldn't do that. And they were also like, look, even if we could, we don't plan to live here for as long as what the city requires us to own or occupy this house. So I went and did a buyout offer, and the girlfriend took the lead on it. And the management was always fighting
Mm-hmm.
her that she wasn't a tenant. And I was like, look, there's two roommates on the lease. You can swap out roommates. Like the woman, I think can prove this, but whatever. So she like went head to head management all the time. You didn't give me this disclosure. You didn't give me that disclosure. You lost all your
Mm-hmm.
rights, blah, blah, blah. So I sent this offer and she gets on the phone and she wants like 6 times the amount of money, like high 5 figures. And I go, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get that. I go, my client can own. I actually think this was right after COVID. So my client could own or occupy. My client's ready to own or occupy. You were offered 3 times the relocation amount, but you're not going to get that. There's no comp to even support that. Like my client has options. My client is moving here. And they're like, okay, well, your client might sell the property. I go, yeah, very possible. And like I was looking at it and I see what your client paid when like they bought it and what they could sell it for. And like this amount of money is like nothing. Like your client's gonna make so much money selling, like paying me this so like I could leave is like not a problem. And I go, look, my client can own or
Mm-hmm.
occupy, and you only gonna get this amount of money. I go, but second of all, how would you feel if this was your house and you rented it? And then years later, you needed to move in or sell it. And your tenant told you that they basically needed a commission for renting the property from you because you stood to gain equity from your hard blood, sweat, and tears to buy the property and maintain it. How would you feel if your tenant told you that?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, yeah. And like the boyfriend's on the phone, like saying nothing. And he's like the guy on the lease. I go, so no, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
say that to my client because it's going to make you look bad. But this is what my client's willing to pay. If not, they'll move forward with the city and they'll just own or occupy. And you'll have to go in 60 days and you'll get a third of what you're being offered. So they took what was
Mm-hmm.
offered. But it's those kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
where it became like, well, I should just get a commission because you're going to make money. Like when you buy real estate, my favorite thing is when I talk to people, like someone who worked for the city and they go, I was hardcore liberal. And then I bought real estate. I bought a fourplex and I became a hardcore conservative. And I go, it's not really a liberal versus conservative argument. It really comes down to when you're young, it sounds incredibly great that you're going to have all these rights and the government's going to give you free money that it's going to magically pull from the sky. But when you get older and you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself in the position of owning real estate or having a business, or having something, some sort of equity, some sort of economic engine. You get why your landlord's that way. You get why your boss is that
Mm-hmm.
way. You get why people are constantly fighting to not raise taxes. Like you start to understand, like, oh, I see now.
Right.
And I put immediately in perspective. I go, what if this day happened for you? What would you do if your tenant goes, give me like $100,000 because I was your tenant? That's like giving you back all your rent money
Mm-hmm.
and more.
But that's it.
You haven't even paid that much money in rent money here. That's crazy. And so those are the kind
I
of
agree.
things that like are like some of the counter arguments or the counter offers and explanations. And I'm like, it's like that doesn't work. Like that's just like this is not the place for that kind of logic. Nor does it really like when you put that in perspective. I mean, like it was a phone call, but I could hear the pin drop in her head, like, oh, like the ramifications of what she had
Mm-hmm.
just said. Like, oh yeah, like putting myself in those shoes, that would like yeah, like and I'd said it like, oh, what if your friend rented it from you and then turned around and said they wanted 100 grand? Like that wouldn't be great. Like anyone asking that of you, like why does everyone feel like they get a cut of everyone's pie? Because like when you have any sort of upside, you're not going to go give that out to people. So why does the property owner have to do that?
I agree. It's amazing that people will take advantage that way. And I find it that what I like about what you just said is the way that you kind of turned it and said, "Hey, look, just let's just shine a light on this for a second. Now pretend it's you." The way you reversed it, though, that's brilliant. That's such a, it's a lot of people maybe won't listen to that because they're so focused on that number and they want that number at anyone's expense, which is offensive. But that's when it's like, okay, well, let's take these gloves off. Then, if this you want to do this differently, then you know what you're going to get. You're going to get half of what we offered you. And so, people. Hey, I had a question for you. By the way, I'm loving your stories. I could talk to you for hours. I really could. I would like to, because we talked about a lot of heavier things. I'd love to hear about a charity or a cause that is close to your heart that we could shine a light on.
Yes. So I actually am one of the facilitators. I'm one of the teachers for a nonprofit called Youth Champions. And the whole
Mm-hmm.
goal of Youth Champions is it focuses on basically giving high schoolers in inner city personal development skills. So they get
Mm-hmm.
access to, like, once a week, they go to a class on Zoom usually. And we talk about, how do you build discipline? How do you have, work life or school life balance? What are the basics of like financial literacy?
Mm-hmm.
What are some options if you don't maybe want to go to college? Maybe you want to pursue some sort of trade. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is just geared towards, like, how do you study better? How do you compartmentalize? How, here's some organizational hacks or study hacks or time management hacks. Those all sort of things to sort of
Mm-hmm.
help kids, which I wish I had in high school. Um, Give them the tools that they might not necessarily have, or like in high school, you might not necessarily go look for, but you would like to know, but maybe that's not what's
Mm-hmm.
on your social media feed. So I love it. I
I
was a
love it.
facilitator last year. The kids are amazing. A lot of them go on to get, to go to very good universities. One of the kids from the program got a full ride scholarship to USC, which I think he graduated or is graduating maybe this year. Amazing. Amazing.
That's great. What I like about that because I have a real heart for kids too, and I'll share it. I'm not going to share it now, but next time we get together or something, let's talk about that because there's an organization actually that I my buddy and I were going to start. And it's very similar to this. I love the fact that you're creating a ripple effect there. You're not just, "Oh, here's some money, here's something temporary." You're actually giving them something that can carry into life and it will have a ripple effect into so many places, to their families, to their friends, their communities. So, man, hats off to you on that. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, so enough about you now. We're going to get Nico back on. And yeah, this was really good. This is really good. You're ruining my life. Go ahead, evict me. Do not rent an unpermitted structure. See, there's so many good things here. I like that. Go ahead, evict me. I
Yeah,
dare you.
which ended up happening. That did go down that
Uh,
way. I think eviction now. I was like, all right.
yeah.